Right. Actually, that would be helpful if you could see it. Let me share my screen. Let's do that. You know, some of these first things first, right? Maybe I should have my coffee earlier on. All right, you see that? Got that? Can you see that, Diane? Okay, perfect. All right. All right. I figured that was a better way to start the morning than. All right. Yeah, actually, no, I didn't even. I forgot that I had made that. I'm not sure. I was looking at a bunch of files. I had like 30 files. And I go, oh, this is so close. This is so perfect. Um, and it's really, it's actually so interesting because it's, when we look at the idea around vision boards, especially in this day and age, we never actually wonder where things come from. Like we never worry, like we're not, most of us are not interested in the origin of the things that we take kind of for granted and the practices we have. And what's so interesting about vision boards is that if you look at their history, especially when the idea of vision boards and even the things that we adopt as a part of personal development practices, like positive affirmations, goal setting. When did these ideas first arise? And what's fascinating is that, of course, they come from our history, our ancient history. And I think why it's important to know that is that it's we've heard that if you've read books and stories over the years. I know as a kid I was always fascinated by books of that talked about knights and magic and dragons and the fun part of the fun part of our imagination. But when you look at the idea of sorcerers and magicians and what we consider as kind of more occult practices, actually it wasn't really that. It was just when you look at old religions and you look at old pagan practices, what they all had in common was a really powerful way of looking. They had a belief was a huge part of their practice, making things transpire. And also being very clear about what it is that you want and what you're willing to do for it, right? So there was, but I think what was interesting is that what we're missing today is belief, because we have these rational minds and we rationalize everything. Well, I could have that because of, these 4 or 5 items, which, are obvious to me, right? So I couldn't possibly see how I could be wealthier, healthier, what have you, because of all these perceived limitations. So, we perhaps we write affirmations and we put up goals for the year. We're in a brand new year. But when we do these things, I find there's a limited amount of belief that goes into it, right? So again, and we're so unsure how that works. I mean, there's lots of theories around putting things out to the universe. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about the quantum field and being able to organize your mind with the quantum field. And of course, more esoteric concepts talk about connecting the universe and angels, but we really don't know. We're trying to label these things because there's these unicorn people out there that seem to be able to pull this stuff off. and to be able to see them have these magical lives. And I've always wondered, like, why is there people out there with less resources, maybe even less intelligence, less everything, and yet, well, I'm perceiving they have less everything, and yet they're doing more than I'm doing. They're having these rich lives that I perhaps don't have at the level that I would desire. And I keep questioning it, and and it's funny because when I first started going this questioning process, it became as a bit of judgment, right, on them. Well, they don't deserve that. That's just luck. And then, after a while, you have to kind of explore. Luck just doesn't happen over and over again. There's something consistent in their behavior. So again, getting back to the idea that it's actually belief or faith driven. And I remember I was listening to Dr. Wayne Dyer and listening to an audiobook that he had recorded, one of the many, and it was on the power of intention. And it's an older book. I listened to it when I was 15, 16, 17 years ago. But I must have listened to that book about 100 times over a 10-year period, because I was driving back and forth to a client's house. It was a half hour there and a half hour back. So, it became my moving mobile university. And he quoted a South American gentleman. He was an anthropologist, Carlos Castaneda. And this guy's name kept coming up. And Carlos Castaneda, he had one quote he pulled from this gentleman. He said, sorcerers, meaning those of the source, right? Like Joe Dispenza would talk about, people that are connected to the source, right? Whatever a source might be. They would cast their intentions like a fisherman would cast his net into the sea, right? With the absolute expectation of actually pulling in their catch. And it was that absolute complete alignment to this purpose, and the purpose that they had intended, but with absolute clarity and absolute certainty that what they had put out there was actually going to come back in. And so you think about those ideas. You think about the ancient cultures and what had made things work. You think about faith healing. You think about, there's so many things we just don't understand. And so, I had to ask myself, am I willing to allow my life to continue on another 10, 20 years, waiting for proof of these things happening while people are making these things happening? Why don't I just go test it out? Why don't I just go try it? Why don't I just put the energy in and actually lead with faith? I mean, there's nothing to lose and everything to gain. So one of the things, of course, if, you've obviously listened to conversations from me for a while, and one of the main things that all mastery has in common is focus, singular focus. And singular focus really refers to, of course, now we think about vision board, that may seem a bit kind of counterintuitive, because probably not wanting one thing. We may have multiple things on the board. So how do we have a single focus when we want a whole bunch of different things, right? Well, if you look at let's say a tennis player, a high-level tennis player with trophies all over the room. Well, I mean, they play a game that consists of a whole bunch of variables, but it's one game, and they have one intention to become, the best tennis player in the world. So they have a singular focus in their sport. And now that single focus in the sport and the game called tennis requires a whole bunch of moving parts, a whole bunch of things to happen, and slight adjustments to be made, and a lot of practice and discipline to actually bring them to that place they call Wimbledon. And the same thing when it goes to our goal setting as well. It's just, there's a singular focus on who we need to become to have the things that we want. And that becomes the focus. And I think what the mistake I've made in the past, and I've just realized this probably more in the last little while, that the error that I was making, and I think so many of us make, is that we sit down perhaps with a group of people, we're having a vision board party, we get our scissors, we get a stack of magazines, or we printed a bunch of stuff off the internet, and we're cutting all these images out and saying, well, I would love that, and yes, a nice car, that would be beautiful, I want a car, and that home would be amazing, and that body would be so good to live in that even for a year, that'd be amazing. And this home and this kind of relationship and this and that, and we put all these things on the board, and we sit back and look at the board and say, well, I want all those things. But the challenge is that when you're looking at images and you're pulling images out, before you do some of the necessary work, which we'll talk to, which you're already familiar with if you know me at all, you look at all these various images, and the person who looked at, let's say, the vacation home, we're not really sure what part of our mind, what part of our psychology actually pulled that vacation home out of the images and said, that's what I want. So a part of us wanted the vacation home. Also, a part of us wanted this dream body. A part of us also wanted this type of relationship. A part of us also wanted, right, all these various things. So if you have, let's say, 8 things for 2020 on the board, and how you decided you wanted them was simply by looking at a series of images and pulling the images out that had an impact on you, that kind of felt good. And it's, well, yeah, I like that idea. We don't know what part of your psychology actually chose the image. So what if the 16-year-old version of you decided on the dream body? What if now I'm not saying you can't have all these things, but there's a process that we're missing before choosing the goals. So, so what if the 16-year-old version of you decided on the dream body, the 23-year-old version of you, somewhere in your memory, decided on the dream house, the 30-year-old version decided on the relationship, and different parts of your psychology and different parts of your maturity were deciding on all these images. So you put these images on the board, and you're looking at them, and these images, the only thing they have in common is the fact that somewhere in your brain you had chosen them, but they tend to be a bit incongruent, because the level of maturity that's actually underpinning each one is different one from the other. Right? So you're emotionally schizophrenic on this vision board, because what's choosing each of these images and these goals, the drivers are all different. And as I said before, mastery comes about being single-minded and focused. Deciding specifically, again, what I want, but more importantly, who I need to become to have those things. So one of the things that you want to be able to look at, of course, is that before you start, is that you decide on who do I need to become to make 2020 the year that I want. Specifically, we know, we are true unto ourselves. We know our limitations. We know our handicaps, right? We know our tendencies. So before we set a goal, we need to decide specifically who, again, it goes back to like the I Am Project, to our values. Who do I need to become? Specifically to make 2020 this extraordinary year. So what is that? Who is that person? Not as but we don't aim it specifically towards any particular goal to start with. Just who do I need to become? And when you decide that with some clarity. And of course, when you're thinking about, of course, the type of person that would make 2020, let's say, a banner year for all of us, then you start laying that out, saying, and again, but on the positive end, right? So as we heard, I'm sure we've heard a million times before, the brain does not process negation. The brain won't process I don't want, I have to stop being. Right? Because the problem with when you use those kind of comments is the brain has to remember you being the very thing you don't want to be. I don't want to feel like this. The brain has to go back and remember how you don't want to feel, and we don't want to keep bringing those ideas forward. What we're looking for is the opposite of what we're looking, the opposite of the negative, right? We're looking at the opposite of the things that we don't want, and that becomes the only conversation we're actually really should have to make things transpire. Because whenever we think about wanting is not the same as having. Wanting leaves you in a state of wanting. The emotion around wanting is still desiring something that you don't have. It still sets it up so that you've actually pushed the goal away, you push the possibility away, because if I'm in a state of wanting is very, very different than actually having. Having, there's an expectation. There's a reality that we can live into with the expectation of having something. But wanting something is completely different. And wanting something will always leave you in the state of wanting. Right? And the subtlety of words is really quite extraordinary. But so I think if we can settle in on our values and decide that, there's part of my character that really needs that, I need to smarten up. I know who I need to be. But when in that declaration, knowing who you need to be and setting that up for yourself, of course, again, the idea being it has to be laid out in a more of a positive sense, right? So just and choosing the values based off the joy and the certainty they express in you, rather than choosing a set of values that's almost seem like you're punishing yourself for not being that the previous year. right? Because I mean, it's just when you're choosing a set of values and character strengths as a goal, which is powerful, we want to choose them for the positive intention and the positive feelings they drive inside of us, rather than choosing them from a sense of retribution or sense of condemnation for us not being that already. Does that make sense? Because again, if you choose the positive intent from a negative driver, the negative driver always powers the positive intent. It's always underpinning it. And how frustrating is that? So anytime you think about being the positive person, you automatically feel guilt for not being that, because guilt chose it. Condemnation chose it. Right? So again, it's kind of teasing that stuff and kind of clarifying and cleaning up those ideas so that when the experience of who you wish to be in 2020 arises in your body, it's free, and it's free of the tainted emotions of regret, guilt, condemnation. I should have, I should have done this in 2019, right? And it's tricky, right? Because it's really, you got to pay close attention and kind of clean these things up. It's like panning for gold. You want to get rid of all the garbage as you go through and just left with a nugget of gold. And it takes a little bit of work. Really, I mean, you really have to be very self-aware of what's going on and how things feel. And as I was going through some of this material, trying to figure out, what was more powerful, I had a bit of an epiphany. Is that, we can create multiple vision boards. In fact, there's a minimum of 2 that you have to create. The first one is a gratitude board for the previous year. Rather than, because again, here's the idea. If I'm choosing the goals for 2020 based on what I had not accomplished in 2019, are the goals that I'm choosing in 2020, is the foundation around them this negative conversation around, I did not do this in 2019, and maybe I didn't even do it in 2018. Maybe I've been wishing for this thing for the last 5 to 10 years. And if there's a negative driver behind what you want going forward, would it not make sense to clean up your history a little bit? So, and realizing that maybe in 2019 that you did way more than you give yourself credit for. It was way more powerful, it was way more exciting, so much more to be grateful for. And if you took the time to actually lay out, and it doesn't have to be massively extensive, but lay out 2019, and if you can think back to 2019 and what an extraordinary year, and bring forward all the gifts that 2019 had given you, and then you use that as the preparation and the launching pad in 2020. So if you're full of gratitude for an amazing year that's already gone past, you have these powerful vision of this character that you're growing into, again, which is a positive thing. Wouldn't not 2020 unfold with a little bit more grace? Rather than saying, well, here I go again, because I have to set a goal because, well, I know it's important and I can't not set a goal. And I often wonder, and I've been guilty of this of myself in the past, how many things have we achieved and haven't even recognized? It's in our reality and we can't even see it. I think there's a term in psychology called a scotoma. A scotoma, scotoma in medicine is actually a blind spot, a visual blind spot. But we can actually have a psychological scotoma, which means we have a perceptual blind spot. We can't even see how good our life already is, because we're in the state of wanting. Always in the state of wanting. I want this to be better. I want this to be better. Rather than being able to, to take some accolades for the extraordinary life we've already generated. And I think it's really important, right, to be able to tease that stuff out of the previous year or years. Maybe extend your vision board backwards, your gratitude board back for the last 5 years, or even the entirety of your life up until now. What are you grateful for? But imagine the kind of power that would generate when you decide to sit down and choose a vision board from a state of certainty, because you realize just how much you've already accomplished, a state of gratitude going forward. I would estimate that your choices going into 2020 would be either absolutely different, or the emotions around them would certainly be very, very different. Does that make sense? Yeah, I mean, what a great way to set goals, right? Especially if you look at a company that's, perhaps the company hasn't done well. Imagine if, imagine the company you're working with, every year they come up and say, okay, here's where we fell short. The axe is gonna drop. We need to do better in the first quarter of 2020. And here's what we didn't do. And here's all your faults. Here's all the mistakes. How demoralizing would that be? And I'm sure there's companies that do it without actually recognizing the damage you're doing. So why would we do that to ourselves? Why would we launch into 2020 off a banner year? The fact that we're alive. I mean, we have, all of us have friends that have been sick, sick with terminal diseases and going through some recovery. You see there's so much negativity out there in the world. It's just, we have really good lives. We're really quite blessed in a lot of different ways. And I think being able to take those blessings forward is really crucial to making this year something extraordinary. So, again, getting back to now that we understand that gratitude and creating a gratitude board would be, I think, a beautiful part of actually capping off the previous year or years. And then from that position, again, knowing who do we need to become now to make 2020 extraordinary again, and that in itself might even change a bit. It may be a little bit more powerful when you think, of course, when I'm thinking about myself, I probably have a higher opinion of myself if I realize that the last year or years have actually been quite extraordinary, and it's given me a tremendous amount of growth. When you select your values, one of the things you want to be able to do is actually choose a series of words. So before you start building your board with the things that you want, we want to be able to bring things. What's the word? We want feeling goals for 2020. We want being goals for 2020 before we want thing goals. Right? So we want, how do I want to be goals? And they can comprise the middle of your board, ideally. Right? So it's just more the essence of who I want to be, how I want to feel, and those things will comprise the middle of your board. Imagine like a hub and spokes on a wheel. And what's in the middle of your vision board are words and words and images that are very well connected to the vision of who you are as a person in 2020. And you can even go reach to the very end of the year. And, if you're struggling with a little bit saying, that feels kind of fraudulent, that's not who I am right now, and it doesn't feel right, I feel inauthentic for choosing that, then think about the end of the year. Who will you be at the end of 2020? And you can call reverse engineer the process. Right, so choose the values, choose the characters. If you're really struggling to believe that is who you are now, and the brain's kind of calling bullshit on that, then go to the end of the year and then say, this is who I'm going to be. This is what I'm working for. And then start the creative imaginative process with that ideal and make that the middle of your board. Once you have those ideals set and say, this is the person I'm going to be. This is the intention. Again, it's based off some gratitude for the previous year. So I'm not coming into 2020 with a sense of lack. I'm coming into 2020 with a sense of certainty. And then when you draw the words and the images, what we're looking for is a couple things. And this is really important. Probably the most important part is that when you select the images, you select the words that best represent what it is that you're trying to create for yourself as a character stance for this year, is that we have to understand what that feels like and where we feel that. And the feeling that you'll carry with you for 2020 and beyond are those feelings. So you have to be able to check in with yourself and be able to make sure that if I chose, let's say discipline, and let's say discipline is one of my words for 2020. I just need to be more disciplined. But I want discipline. I want to imagine discipline giving me a life that I maybe don't yet have. Or maybe look at where discipline's already showed up in my life, where I acknowledge that I've been incredibly disciplined, which means doing the things you need to do long after the motivation has gone, and recognizing that discipline has already existed inside your life, and it's given you, really a life of measure. So if I chose discipline, then I need to reflect and say, well, have I been disciplined before? And what does it feel like to think about that? What does it feel like to know that I've already been disciplined, that I've already had that strength, I've already had that capacity? And then landmark the feeling. Because again, we hear this over and over again, especially of late, that we live in a feeling universe, and what we feel about, we bring about. Right, and it's an important term. What we feel about, we bring about. And I know enough of my negative spiraling over the years, the things that I've seen occur in my life in a negative sense. What preluded it was a bunch of negative spiraling thinking. And then the thing showed up. And we say, just coincidence. Well, I don't know. I'm opting for the fact that every time my brain goes sideways, so does my life. Right? I think there's enough evidence of that in my life over the last 20 years to say, yeah, I think that's true. I think I can actually own that one. So, we were masters in the negative, what's the word? We're masters in the negative transformation, so why not be masters in the positive transformation? But again, it's really crucial so that when those words and images in the middle, they have to evoke something out of you. They have to pull something out of you. They have to draw your attention. They have to set an emotional stage. And if you think about why, when you look at old cultures, and whether you look at Christian cultures, you look at what Christians call pagan cultures, which are just non-Christian cultures. I'm not sure where they got the word pagan, but all spiritual cultures over history all have the same thing in common, right? They have this idea, they're emotionally engaged. They use music, right, in celebration of their belief. They use images and guiding the mind towards an end. They use repetition of words. It could be a prayer, or the Christians would call it a prayer. The pagans would call it an incantation. The personal development people call it positive affirmations. Like, what's the difference? It's the same language. We're not doing anything new, except, again, as I said before, the difference now in our modern society is that we have these rational minds. Let's say it's not true. That's all voodoo and weird, old mystic stuff. No, that's just the way it works. Except they had belief; their beliefs weren't tainted by this overly rational mind. And nowadays, again, personal development borrows what has always been here. And the idea of the affirmations, these positive affirmations, or these written goals, only have meaning if they actually generate a physical meaning inside of you. There's no point having something that like, try watching a movie without sound. So there's no music score, right? There's no highs and lows. You can't see what's going on when somebody's hiding in the closet, as the family's watching TV, or there's a romantic scene. And if you're just watching and there's no sound, does it evoke anything? Is it the same experience? I don't know. Doesn't mean anything. You see these images, but your brain's trying to figure out, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I can't tell. I'm not being drawn into the emotion of the experience, so I don't know. So that's why it's so important when you create these values, and again, I know I'm kind of repetitive on this point, is that when you're generating, it has to evoke a response, emotional response. And the idea is that you choose the response, and that's the practice. The practice is generating that response. And when you're in this feeling state on a constant basis, on a day-to-day basis, and you become well practiced at the feeling state of being the person that you desire to be, or remembering the person you already are, perhaps, then it's much easier to go through this year and the years to come with this great sense of certainty, where it's not the only work we have to do is the work of actually reminding ourselves of who we are. That's the work. All the rest of the stuff will unfold. Because most of us know how to work. That's the easy part. We know how to actually sit down and do work. I know how to sit down and put stuff together for this. I know how to do it. But it's the spirit in which I do it in is the important part. Now, when we have our values, when we have a gratitude board completed for the previous year, and we closed off the year with a sense of gratitude rather than a sense of lack going into 2020, going, man, yeah, just I didn't get what I wanted, like an angry kid, a spoiled kid at Christmas. Didn't get what I wanted. Santa better show up on 2020 with something good. If I go into a sense of gratitude instead of being like a spoiled child, unable to see, the extraordinary life that I have, right? So I cap off 2020 or 2019 beautifully. I step into these ideals of who I'm becoming more of in 2020, and now I go through and decide on, of course, on my goals. Like now, my thing goals can be a part of the conversation. What would my thing goals require? So from the state of who I am, I allow that part of me to choose the goals. And I want goals that are actually going to enhance this version of who I am and who I'm becoming. All right, so you can put a list of goals saying, well, what would I like to be in this space? Right? If I'm serving a purpose in the world, what things can I move towards in 2020 that would actually bring me more in alignment with my sense of purpose? It may not be financial goals at all. It may not be health goals. It may not be any of the things you maybe normally have actually chosen in the past. If you're trying to live in alignment and live up to a purpose. So let's look at a financial goal, for example. Now, quite often, of course, you'll see, and it's littered everywhere, the law of attraction and tapping for $10,000, and next 24 hours or $100,000, right? And all these things, but the universe doesn't work really that way. Not as far as I understand. The way I understand it is that, of course, there's still a transaction required to make things happen. But if I'm in the space and if there's a certain lifestyle I want, then of course there's a certain way I have to be in the world to actually be set up to be able to be in the experience of being able to generate that kind of wealth. Right? So I need to position myself emotionally with a sense of purpose, with my positive intent to give to the world, to give back, to be a contributor, to align myself with the possibility of me accruing that financial reward. Otherwise, I'm just wishing for a bag of money to drop out of the sky. And again, so I've offered nothing in return. And I don't think life works that way, as far as I know. I'm waiting for bags of money. You know what? Been on the planet a couple of years, hasn't happened. Wendy, you get a bag of money drop on your head yet? No, yeah, see, yeah, Robin, not you either. So there must be another way around it, right? So when I look at my sense of purpose, what I'm giving to the world, and it's not a matter of you don't have to quit your job and have to go join the Peace Corps. It's not a matter of doing that, right? It's really a matter of actually looking at your current trajectory and saying, inside the frame, part of my purpose in life, I believe, is to serve in whatever capacity, let's say I am professionally. And how can I serve that more? Now, I have a secondary intention where I'd like to be in a financial position where my life is quite comfortable, right? Maybe really comfortable. But in order to do that, in order to have that, I need to be worth that. I need to generate enough value to the world that is a possibility for me. And this year, this year in front of us and years to come. So I give you a good example, and some of the alignment. So I've been working with this I Am Project thing forever. It seems right, and it just it's one of these things that seems to trickle along, and it trickles along, and it doesn't seem to gain any real traction. Financially, right? And we're actually doing some pretty good work. We're currently working with the addictions program here in town. So we're 2 months into the program, doing some kind of a bit of a pilot study with the staff and some of the clients there. And of course, I also volunteered to work at the prison and doing the storybook program for fathers who are incarcerated. So we record bedtime stories. The fathers read to the kids. We take the book, we do the recording, and we burn a CD. We send that off to the families. So doing this volunteer work, I did it with the intention where I need to find a way to contribute. I need to find a way to get out into the world and see where I can offer my skill set. So what's interesting is that just 2 days ago. I was at the prison, and when I went into the room that we did the recording, it was all full of chairs, and there was a prison guard there, and he said, "Oh, we're setting up for a course from the university. The university is actually teaching a course there." And I go, "Well, okay, I've got like 7 guys coming in, and I'm not sure if they're going to be, it's going to be noisy, and it's not going to work very well. There's a little concern." And what it was is actually the university teaches a restorative justice program inside the prison. And half the students are prisoners and half the students are people on the street, right? Just the students from the university. And the 2 ladies that were there were the teachers, and one was a professor from the university, and she'd come up and ask me what I was doing, and then kind of curious about it. So anyhow, I had a meeting with this professor from the restorative justice program closer to the end of February when things slow down for her. But these opportunities show up because I put myself out there in a position. I went into it with the intent, I just want to contribute. I want to do something outside of my own life, and something that's in alignment with how I'm rolling through the universe right now. And so these things just set themselves up, right? Same with Diane. We've been collaborating the last little while, and these conversations, and you can't hurry them. You have to let them naturally unfold. But these things just slowly, it goes from an idea of actually creating a retreat, which was actually relatively small in nature, right? It's not a big life earth-shattering thing, but actually having this retreat at where we had it, there's 6 degrees of separation away from the owners of this entire resort chain. And the idea being is, and the owners of the resort chain, there's some family challenges going on, there's some health challenges, there's some business challenges, but just the fact that we chose to be there, the way we interact with the staff, the conversations Diane's been having, and moving the purpose of the I Am Project forward, not as a business objective, but as a way of just helping. It's unfolding all these possibilities in time, which is really quite interesting, which again, there was no dollar amount or a vague one to kind of put in the background, but the idea is that, actually this could really help. This could really help. And the idea wasn't, hey, this is a really wealthy Mexican family. This could generate, I'm going to go and start shopping for cars right away. I'm going to go buy a bunch of new suits. It wasn't about the jackpot. It was, this could really help. There's a sense of purpose that kept the vision, right? The vision alive, which generate the positive emotions behind it, which will actually generate what I'm looking for. So the side effect is financial security. But the purpose is actually going out and actually being a powerful part of the universe and what you have to offer. And it's almost like it's that deservedness. Right. So again, discipline kept me going, and belief kept the conversation going. But it's this the sense of purpose that the monetary goal that I have on my vision board is very much secondary. But it will happen. So I still have it as a goal, but it's a very small. It's a small side effect of a more beautiful goal. And trust me, I want the money. I want financial stability. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's the spirit in which you go after it. Meaning that I'm willing to work hard. I'm willing to get up earlier, like we all are, right? To have conversations, to think about things. And again, it's in the spirit of who I already am. So it's not like I'm wanting a financial life from a different mindset, from a mindset of scarcity. And how about a health goal? Health goals are really common, right? People want to be this weight or that weight, or they want their bum to be rounder, or they want to, drop a bit of body fat, or they want to be what have you. You have all these physical goals, and there's nothing wrong with actually having the physical goal. There's nothing wrong with actually having that degree of physicality. There's nothing wrong with looking a certain way, and I think it's quite achievable for the vast majority of people. But again, it's just if we choose that goal, I want to be this from a sense of I'm not enough already, and that's required to make me better, then again, it comes from a sense of wanting, rather than a current sense of gratitude for, I don't have cancer. I have lots of friends that do. I have all my limbs. I know people that are missing limbs, right? I mean, so if you're launching into my health goals from a sense of lack, then then the likelihood is you're going to perpetuate that lack into your behavior. rather than, again, the sense of gratitude for who I already am and this incredible health and the resources I have access to, which is so much more important. The resources we have access to, especially in these developed countries, it's extraordinary. And if I move towards my goal from that sense of certainty and gratitude, and then through my vision of who I'm desiring to be, and through that lens, then choose my wellness goal for 2020. And the wellness goal will actually be in alignment to my financial goal, because it's through the same lens. So the idea being, if I'm choosing, and again, most of you guys have the I Am Voice, you get this, right? If I'm choosing through this lens my financial goal, and I'm choosing through this lens for my wellness goal, doesn't matter which one I'm trying to achieve, they're both moving forward at the same time. And mastery comes from being what? Single-minded. I can have multiple goals, but I am coming from the same place in the achievement of it, which makes it really easy. Because when I look at my goal board, it's not schizophrenic. I don't have to keep flicking my brain back and forth. 16, 32, 18, 24. Oh my God, I just walk away schizophrenic, not knowing who I am and what I'm supposed to, how I'm supposed to feel about all these things, other than despondent that I'm not going to get it. But if I look at it with what's the expression? Be of one mind. Be of one mind, right? Be singular in purpose. But you can achieve many things in that singular mind, that singular sense of purpose. It's just so obvious that it just, you know what I mean? It's so obvious, but it just, we don't think about it because, well, we don't think about it. And the interesting thing, of course, as we go through this is that, and don't lie. The universe hates a liar. Does not like people lying about things. Don't lie to yourself. Don't espouse your lies. Carolyn Myss, who's a spiritual author, I'm a huge fan of hers. There's one of the TEDx talks she did. She was going, liars never heal. You're better off eating cat food and being honest, and you'll probably have much better health than drinking wheatgrass and eating organic food if you're a liar. If you're miserable and small-minded and bitter, wheatgrass ain't going to help you. Right? So, and it really does make sense because, of course, our thought process is actually chemical. Our thought process affects our immune system. But the universe will not tolerate a liar because it knows you better than you know yourself. So money, travel, career, relationships. Inside all these things, of course, you come from the same line. And you don't have to have 20 things on the board. You can be super creative, be intuitive with the process. You know, you can pray about it, you can meditate about it, but be certain about it, if nothing else. Be certain the spirit in which you're going to create this vision for 2020. Be certain that 2019 has been well taken care of. 2019 has been well looked over. We've actually gleaned all the beauty of 2019. We're so excited with all the things that we didn't even realize that went our way. And then continue on with the creation process. Now I'm going to show you something, a real powerful way to do this. Now this is a website, this is a product called, actually here, one sec. I keep forgetting to do this here. Let me let you see exactly what I'm yakking about here. So this website, or this website, is called Lumen5, Lumen 5.com. And it's actually a free website to use. Now there's a paid version of the course. But what I would actually do if I were you, and you know the video you saw in the very beginning? Well, I made it on here. And look at all these videos I created here. All right. So what you can do is, let me move it over here. I'm going to create a video. There we go. And I can use it. I can take information from a blog, or I can use a script. Now, let's say, for example, you lay out your I am statements, right? Your personal statements for 2020. You can lay your gratitude statements for 2019, right? You can lay all that stuff out, right? You can actually write it out first and plug it in here. So I'll just put a few words in here. I am so grateful. Right, just put a few words and go. I can decide on what it looks like. Now, again, now you can actually post this, but this is for your own personal use, so it doesn't matter what you pick. I generally just pick this this feed here, news feed. But if you're creating videos to put online, there's also possibilities. Let's say I click this one here, news feed. I can choose the theme. Whoops. Try it again. Oh, seriously? All right, well, let me go here. Let me go back and, oh God. So, of course it would do that, wouldn't it? Let me go. Let's go back here. Let me take a pre-existing one here. It's being weird. I'm not sure why. All right, focus on what you want, what you don't want. Whoops. Just click on this. I'll show you how it works. So when you write out your goals and of course you plug it into where it says script, it'll show up here on the side here, on the left-hand side. So here's what will be all the information. And what it automatically does is it actually takes the information and it goes into its own personal library and chooses images that it believes are relevant, right? So it's all AI stuff, right? It chooses images that it thinks is relevant. So the word focus, of course, what does it do? Well, it showed the word, it actually creates something that's a bit out of focus, right? So it chooses for you. Now you choose on your own and you can upload your own images for this. But you can create these different slides here. And so let's say I want to choose a different picture here. So I'll click on this and I'll go into media and I'll search millions of photos and videos I can choose from, right? This is so cool. So this is your mobile visceral vision board. Have one on your wall, but also generate one here with the same imagery. And let's say I use the word magic. All right. And I want just photos itself. Let's go on here. Media. So here's the images that I've uploaded myself. Right, so let's say I want to use one of my images here. I can just drag it over. And this is images, this is actually from top of a Catholic church in Nicaragua. We're actually went up to the very top and we're taking pictures of the city. I can, what else can I do here? I can use GIFs. I can choose the music. Right. There's a whole bunch of free audio tracks. I can choose the tone, mood, angry, bright.
To that?
What's that?
Can we upload audio tracks to that? No.
You can upload just the images.
Okay.
But I can choose different ones. So let's say inspirational. Whatever you want, right? So you put all your images into here. You alter the text, whatever text that you want, right? So all your affirmations, right, for 2020. And then when you complete it, then you hit publish. And of course you can download it. You can upload it straight to Facebook, but obviously we probably want to download it. And it prepares it. When it's done, of course, you get an email it to you, and of course you just download it from here. And that way you've got an audio, visual, right, and moving vision board for 2020. with a cool soundtrack that makes you feel a certain way. So you have your vision boards in your home, it downloads to your phone. And you can look at this thing multiple times a day, no matter where you are in the world. Click on the video, it's on your phone, and watch it. And and it's got the sound, and it's got everything that means something to you, and it's so dynamic. For me, I think it's way more powerful than just a static board. And again, I can't, I'm going to work. I can't have my big poster board with me, my 30 by 60 poster board heading into work. Yeah, it's I got goals for 2020 because you put it on the wall. Right? So this is much easier. It's much easier process. And then you can create as many files as you want. So if I go back to dashboard here, my videos. I've got a few of them. Right? All right. So the website's Lumen 5. And again, it's a free resource. And again, you don't need 1080p definition on it, right? So I think it's, as far as the quality of the video, you're not publishing this to run an ad. It's not just for your use. So it doesn't have to be like super high def, right? And I think it's 480 and 720, which is basically the quality of the video. But 720 is fine, right? So it's enough for what you need. But imagine to have that on your phone. And 3 or 4 times a day, you click on this thing, it lasts 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. And you look at that thing going, yeah, like absolutely. And you can feel it. You're watching this thing, the music, right? And how did magic rituals, how did Christian rituals, how they perform? An idea, sound, music, movement, right? This repetition. Why not? Why not understand what our ancestors have understood forever, and what a few select people in the world seem to understand today? What makes it work, right? Let's clarify your values specifically, right? And again, you think about, and it's such an important piece, and I'm repeating it again. My apologies, but it's just, if I'm a faith healer and that's my thing, I come from a very specific place in my mind, and it's a very specific way of looking at the world, and there's a mastery in that with thought process, right? Whether I'm a Catholic priest or whether I'm a voodoo priest in Haiti, no matter what kind of magic I'm practicing, it comes from a very specific place, right? And that was here first. As when we do what we always do, we extract fragments of old ideas, and we leave the rest behind because, well, it doesn't look good, right? Walk around. What are you doing? I was putting away the chicken carcass I just beheaded in my in my office because I was trying to. Certain practices we can leave behind for sure, but the idea behind it, it's the intention. What was the intention behind the practice? What was the intention behind the ritual? And I think we really tease that and understand that. And of course, we've heard that. Now, the other few parts of this, of course, we know it takes roughly 66 days, according to university research, to redevelop a pattern. And the pattern, of course, the creation of a pattern it's just your neurons that are wired together, and we just need to give them a great blueprint and a specific message about that blueprint. Imagine trying to build a house that this is what happens when people's homes all of a sudden cost $200,000 more than what they intended, because they keep changing their mind, right? They can't imagine what it looks like, and when they get halfway through, well, that's not what I wanted. And we got to take that wall out. We got to push this thing here, put a toilet here, and all of a sudden their home is now costing them, way more than they anticipated. So the idea is that the only thing you want to work on is not so much what you have to do, it's just who you have to be. When you decide on who you need to become, don't worry about the how. The how really does show itself up. Doesn't mean you can't give it any thought, but it should be your primary consideration. And again, and don't be afraid, to if you find one vision board for 2020 is not enough, you can have one that's just around a particular topic or maybe a couple topics. And you can generate several boards to have in your house. Don't think it has to be one giant collage. It's so crammed in there, it looks like the subway in the UK, right? It doesn't have to be so jammed in where it's so schizophrenic, it doesn't make any sense. Allow yourself the creativity to build, it doesn't have to be perfect, or it could be if that's the way you roll. You want, so I've got a wooden case, glass wooden case, right? So it opens up and you put your vision board pieces in there and close the case and have it displayed beautifully on your mantle, right? So it actually, so it doesn't look like a 4-year-old went nuts with some glue stick and some crayons, right? But whatever it is that you want it to be, and you can have multiple ones, but make it feel good for you. It has to feel good for you. And of course, it has to be displayed prominently enough so that you're actually able to observe it. And I really would urge you to use Lumen 5 as a resource to create your vision board that travels with you. Audio, visual, right? And of course, it's going to create that kinesthetic feeling. It's going to create that emotional sense because it starts off with the vision of you, and then it starts off with what that vision of you is going to generate, maybe materially, inside 2020. All right. What do you guys think? Does that make sense? You can actually chat if you want.
I think the Lumen 5 idea, number one, because it's free, is brilliant. Because if we tap in 3 times a day, just morning, noon, and night, more if we can, to what we want, we will always create that feeling on a daily basis. So I love that tip. That's a great software. Thanks for that.
Constant reminder. Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Love it.
Right. Well, how many faiths pray multiple times a day? Why do they do that? Well, I mean, one idea, of course, they have a belief about it's required, but doesn't it put them back into a state? It puts us back into a certain state of being, a certain state of believing multiple times a day. When I was in Morocco, we got abandoned because our guide had to go pray. Right? So we're in Tangier, it's going, I'm never going to find my way out of here. Right? Have you ever seen Aladdin, the movie Aladdin? Right? It's just like that. The rooftops are all covered, and it's just a maze. It was designed so that you couldn't attack this city straight on, because you never find your way through. Right? Army couldn't rush through all these alleys. So we had, we're probably like 4 blocks away from when the boat dropped us off. But it's such a freaking maze, you never find your way out. But certain time, the call started. The guy goes, I gotta go hit the mosque. Gotta go pray, and multiple times a day. So you think about, it's just regardless of what we think about the faith and what we understand about Islam. But what I admire is that I'm going to drop everything to go do that. And we as North Americans say, I don't have time to do that because I've got things I've got to do. So I think, I think there's some power in repetition, especially to generate belief. Yeah, so that's,
David, Robin
yes.
here. So I think that's an amazing tool that you've just introduced us to for all the reasons that you've just said. Wonderful. But you also, in your personal practice, or generally, you also have physical vision boards as well?
Yeah.
Because I can see that while we're developing the habit of going in and looking at our mobile vision board, there are going to be times where you go, oh, shoot, I forgot to do it today, or I forgot to do it this morning. So you still have the physical one so that you...
Yeah. Use the physical one as the architecture to build that one first before you do the smaller one. Yeah. So basically, you're just it's a rendered down version perhaps of your bigger board. Now, what you can do, of course, you can take as you're building your image, you can actually as you're building your physical board, you can actually take pictures of those images. And let's say we don't have magazines much anymore. We do everything online. So let's say all your images are pulled from online. You can actually either just take those images that you're using and use not only on your board, but move them into the Lumen 5 technology at the same time.
Okay, great idea. Great idea.
So what you might see is like and with Lumen 5 you can change the time, right? So you change how long the image is up there for. So
Mhm.
let's say I have, let's say I have 20 images that encompass everything. Well, I can give it so that I get 3-second blips on my Lumen 5 video. So it's there for 3 seconds and disappears. Next one comes up, it disappears. Next one comes up, it disappears. And I can go through that, so I'm not, if I got 25 things on my board, I'm going, Jesus, I'm going to be here for like a half an hour, right, getting through this thing. So I can change the timing of it, so I just get a little blast. I get the image, I get the image, I get the image. And so make them concur, make them the same thing. And that would be ideal if you could do that. Right?
Okay.
The same images you're generating for your board are the same images that show up on your phone. So the images are concurrent.
And it's amazing as well how quickly your brain can actually capture the image. Like, I've seen testing of that you think, you look at a page, a written page, and then you turn away and you don't think that you've looked at it long enough to comprehend what's there, but your mind has actually seen it. So it doesn't really, those images don't actually have to flash up for that long to have an impact.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's, that's the whole idea around speed reading. We learned the whole idea of the practice of speed reading is to enhance cognition, to enhance your ability to extract the material. Reading slow actually makes it harder to understand. The faster because the brain, how fast does the brain operate? Running pretty quick, right? So you're absolutely right. I mean, it doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out thing where the thing slowly goes by your field of vision. That's I think it'd be exciting to see what we can generate over the next little bit here. Get it done before maybe the month of January, and get it all set up. But to have the corresponding images on your phone, the same thing on your wall. And it's and even so, and of course I've heard recommendations of taking your vision board and take it to Staples to have it scanned and have copies printed and then put it in multiple locations in your home.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Thanks.
just so it's it's in my bathroom. It's in my personal bathroom, not public one. It's in my office. It's in my bedroom. It's in it could be in the living room. There's a family that I was reading about. They actually took one wall of their house and they spray painted the word freedom, like the living room, like the dining room wall, white wall. And they painted freedom, and they started writing things on it, and it was a graffiti wall. And I wasn't sure the timeline how long it took, but this family ended up living on a 42-foot boat, and they ended up having two of them, one in Seattle and one I think somewhere around Florida, and they lived half a year on one, half a year on the other. Homeschooled their kids, but that's what they wanted, and they painted an entire wall. Jim might have something to say about that, right? What decorating? What the hell is that? But it just, I think it's just we have to get to a point. We have to realize at some stage along the way that sheer effort is not enough.
Well, I actually used to put different pictures. I guess it was the equivalent of a vision board, but in captured in various different pages. Put them in plastic sheets and put them up in my shower. Yeah. So it's every morning. Yeah, I used to do that. Good idea.
I have them all laminated.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and howfully if you shower on a daily basis, which is the ideal scenario, then you're going to be looking at it every time, and you're there for a little bit, right?
Yeah, I know.
How'd you cut yourself shaving? Well, I was looking at my board and right, carved off a bit of my leg, but it's all good. Yeah, I mean I think it's getting into these practices. I've got things different things in my house, on my mirror in my bathroom. I've got things written. I've got a big mirror in my bedroom. I've got things written on it. I got something in my office. Actually, Staples had these little things to sell. The marquees, little marquees, and so he changed the letters around, right? So I have these little marquees, and before I start work, I click on the marquee. It lights up, and then it flickers a little bit, just because it's cheap technology, right? And it flickers, and it gets my attention. I look at it and go, yeah, I really do. I really do love it. I'm really happy. I've got one in my kitchen. You know, it just, it's just the same thing. I love my life, life of abundance. I look at it and go, I do. I'm smiling when I think about that. But it's so important because because the cost of being alive and the cost of success, seemingly, if we're not aware of actually how good we have it along the way, it can be frustrating. I should be in better shape. I should be here. I should have more money. I should have been able to kill my credit card debt. I should be here. And then we're in this comparison of, well, I should be where they are. And then all of a sudden, everything that's good about our life, we sort of even see. So if we can't recognize and be grateful for what we currently have, it's highly unlikely that even if we do achieve what we want, we won't even know that it's there. We will derive no joy from the accomplishments because we can't even we're unable to be even joyful for where we currently stand. And it's powerful, right? I think gratitude, for what's already there and a sense of purpose for what we're willing to give to the world. And then with a secondary idea of, would it be kind of nice if all these things would show up, but you know what? I have faith that these things will show up in my life when I show up in the world as a person I need to be. And do the things necessary. I'll give you one quick example here before we head off. There's an HMO in the U.S. So this is talking about like a medical insurance hospital, and the billing department of the hospital has like a 40% error rate in billing. Now, especially in the U.S., that's a big deal, right? Because medical bills in the U.S. are high enough, and challenging enough. So for you to get a bill that's a couple of grand out as an error, that's not a great way to go home and try to convalesce. So I'm trying to figure out how do you inspire these people? How do you get these auditors, this billing department to do better? And what they did is every time somebody left the hospital, they took a Polaroid. And the whole wall at one end of the office was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures of all patients who left the hospital. So now their billing, the numbers, the digits were now associated to a series of, associated to people. And it wasn't just, I wasn't just punching numbers. I'm responsible for the welfare of these people. These people were sick, they had some health challenges, and my numbers I'm putting on a piece of paper and creating this bill for these people, actually it really affects their health. Like it took an abstract idea of this is just a bill, and it abstracted it down to this is actually a human. This is a family that just went through, that had a family member that just went through surgery, and my bill, the efficiency in which I do my job actually has a deeper sense of purpose. And they went from like a 40% error rate, just stupid mistakes, down to like I think a 4 to 6%. Like massive difference just by actually putting an emotional connection to what they were doing. So no matter what career we're in, if our careers are not, let's say, what we believe as a serving industry, where I'm not, I'm not. Well, you think about if you're in the travel industry, right? How people are not going to come back if their experience is crappy, right? And it's not so much the journey; it's just I remember having some challenges and with flights and stuff, and I hit the phone. This friend of mine that did all the booking. She was a travel agent I used all the time, and just one quick call, and she said, "Okay, I'm on it," and she took care of everything. And then the problem that I thought was a problem was no longer a problem because somebody's looking after me. Right? So I didn't mind waiting an extra, like 9 hours in the airport. That wasn't the issue because it was all taken away because this person said I'm on it, and because she thought that way, she made my bad experience better. And so I continued. Anytime I needed to fly somewhere, I could go online and try to figure out the multitude of sites and save myself a couple $100. I would just give it to her because she made my experience better. All right. Okay, guys, listen, it's 8:10. We've gone over a little bit. Thanks for coming out this morning. Let me tease this conversation up. And I think it'll be a really fun annual thing to do. But stay in touch with what you created. You don't necessarily have to show your board if it's that personal, but let me know how the process is. And then set a timeline, January 11th today. So set a timeline set a timeline before the end of the month to get them done, and then maybe we'll kind of reel back and if you want, we can hop on just a quick casual call and see what you created, and if you want to share about what the experience was like putting it together and how perhaps this process or this maybe this method was a little bit different than what you've done in the past. I'm excited, right? Because now this is where magic starts. All right.